Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby Babb. Today I am absolutely delighted to have into the studio Andrew Kaufmann. Andrew, how are you doing?
All right, pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Listen, absolutely delighted. I'm thrilled and delighted to do this because I love talking to passionate people, and I don't think I've ever come across anyone as passionate about something they're doing at the moment as you with the Time to Give network. So we're going to find out a little bit more about this in a minute and talk about the journey for you getting there. It's a really exciting thing you're doing. I can tell that you're sort of itching to tell everyone a little bit more about it. But Andrew, start off by just telling us a little bit more about your background first and foremost, and how it's led you to where you are today.
Absolutely. Well, as you can tell by my subtle accent, I'm American. Even though I've been in the UK for 15 years now, and love it here. Absolutely love it here. But back in the States, after I graduated from college, I went to, just to date myself, to Bankers Trust. It was my first job on the trading floor. And I had a career in institutional sales. I had a career in market making in foreign exchange before moving to the fintech space in '95. So it's been a good long time, coming up on 30 years of doing it, and then have worked in a number of different capacities, mostly in a business development capacity where I was selling everything from service solutions like fund administration and outsourcing to software solutions around reconciliation, trade order management. And so I've had a pretty good view across the whole spectrum of the financial services world from a fintech vendor perspective. Yeah.
And then that continued for a little while, and then this brainwave, this itch started to scratch, and you've created this Time to Give network. Tell us a little bit about the whole story behind that.
Yes. So this is a testament to the ability to step back. I had a window where I was between jobs. I had another job lined up, and there was a window between those two jobs, and I had the time to ideate. I had the time to walk the dog in the park and think about problems and how to solve them and what could I do that I would have more passion about. And that was where I came across the
start of many an evolutionary story of an entrepreneur and a founder.
Indeed. It's just about being able to step back and have the time to ideate rather than being caught up in your day-to-day job. So that was a blessing. And then I came up with this idea. And so rather than taking that job in fintech sales, again, at a different firm, I decided to strike out and start a not-for-profit and feel good about what I'm doing.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about that. So you're sat there and you're thinking, right, there's this idea that I've been sort of mulling around and ideating. And it's a big sort of play, isn't it, to go through from the safety of another job in what you've done, knowing what you're doing, to moving in there to do something which is following this passion, this excitement, this vibrant sort of thing, which has led you to where you are today. Tell me about what made you. I guess it's sort of like this true calling, isn't it, to say this is what I've got to do, this is what I want to be doing.
It feels like just being able to take all those years, honestly, all those years of frustration. The frustrating aspects of the sales job, because I love being in sales, right? The thrill of the chase and the feeling of accomplishment, and money isn't bad either. But it's not. But it just needed to be different, and I needed to solve that problem that had been bothering me for the longest time, which was the problem of access, timely access. And through just thinking about it and mulling over different ideas and talking to different people and validating it, and it morphing over time, that's how it came to bear. But the initial idea of being able to raise money for charity, to solve a big problem in the marketplace together, in a market where over time I was able to work out that there were just no losers in the model, it just made it a fairly easy decision rather than going back to a sales role.
I love the idea of this founder sort of being sat there and thinking, where are the problems, where are the points of friction, where's the frustration in my job beforehand. That's what leads people to say, right, let's find the solution, and that's kind of where it came through from here. So you're a salesman for best part of 30 years. You're looking at the sort of things that you found challenging in the marketplace, and those challenges aren't unique to you. They were sort of the same things that exist all the way through, all across the world, across pretty much anyone you're talking to.
Correct.
So Tell us a little bit about how you're solving that issue. Tell us about the problem you're solving first and foremost, and then what you're doing to make the world a better place because of it.
Understood.
In more ways than one.
Fair enough. Thank you. And I think we will. The cost of what I was doing, right? I was an expensive resource. And the costs associated with me sending pithy emails and relevant LinkedIn messages and doing other things that salespeople do, networking and all of the like, it was not getting a compelling ROI on my salary, right? In my mind, for my company, right? It's just not a good use of my time. I wanted to find a more efficient, cost-effective way, number one, to make it easier to justify my existence. And so I wanted to find a way that would allow me to solve the problem of access. And also, do it in a timely fashion, because in conventional models, if you're networking, by the time you find somebody who's willing to make an introduction, and that introduction happens, and the introduction then takes another 5 touch points before you get a half-hour Zoom call, you're looking at 6-8 months before you're out of the blocks, right? So the compression of that time frame also was very important to me, because it was just, again, there's time equals money, and in sales, time equals risk. So the longer it takes for me to get in front of somebody, the more at risk I am of them going with someone else. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to someone and they said, "Oh, if I only met you 4 months ago," right?
Time kills deals is the old one.
Exactly. So if I can compress that time and get in front of people in a cost-effective way, that was what I wanted to try to figure out a model, and I did.
And talk to us a little bit about how that looks like, and what that means for people, companies looking to get in front of the right people, looking to get that access.
So the way the Time to Give network works is a very basic model, one in which people offer their time in the form of a meeting in return for a donation to that person's charity of choice. Now, why people may want access could be varied. It could be for business development purposes. It could be to network, because now this is a good person to know and they can forward my cause or at least get on their radar. It could be for their expertise and just to learn from them. It could be a selfie. It could be anything, any reason why people want that access. But in business development, it's obviously to further your cause. And how do I get in front of that person? So what the Time to Give network does, it allows a mechanism whereby those who you seek an audience with are available to you in return for a donation to your charity of choice. The first question that I'm always asked by those who seek access is, well, who do you got, right? Who do you got? I can't, it's inevitable, and I always like to use, because we're focused largely on the asset management space and its ecosystem here in the UK before growing bigger. The plan is to go to those institutions or those individuals who seek that access, who are frustrated by that lack of access. And they may be able to access quite a number of people, but they're always going to have a list of people that they're not able to access. So this is a tool for them, where they can provide a list of those individuals to the Time to Give network. Now, very importantly, and I probably should have stepped back on this one, is the Time to Give network is a community interest company, or a KIC, a CIC. A community interest company is a big part of our USP, right? Because we cannot pay dividends, and there's a concept of an asset lock. So in our articles of incorporation, there is a charity named, in this case, Help for Children, and they are the beneficiary should this venture ever be wound down. They own the assets. So there are no investors getting rich. There is nobody in the organization building equity. Right? Everybody's just paid a at or below rate salary, and then we give all our excess revenue to charity. Right? So that's really why we're hopeful that people will want to participate on this platform, because my favorite British phrase, nobody's taking the piss, right? And we have the ability to then convey this along with our stewardship board, who make sure that we stay true to our mission. So we can't deviate from this basic model of raising donations in return for time.
Just coming back to your motivation for this. So you've obviously been in one of the, sales industry is often one of those things where people are motivated by targets, by the by the money, by the potential, etc., all this sort of thing. And you moved into this sort of very philanthropic sort of mode with, at the heart of it, this thing there to say, right, this isn't about me or about the stakeholders getting rich, etc., etc. It's about creating value for all of that. Where does that come from for you? What's sparked that being the thing there, which is, what I imagine to be quite a marked change in your motivation on a day-to-day basis?
I would say that there are two reasons. One is that I turned 60 not long ago, and you start
looking
thinking
very
about,
good on that.
Thank you. You say the sweetest things. So one is I turned 60, and I have a 9-year-old little boy, and I have a 35-year-old daughter, and I start thinking about your legacy, and pushing post-trade solutions is not necessarily something I wanted on my gravestone, to be honest, right? So in this case, the personal motivation to be able to do good without it having to be overly enriching, right? I can take a fair salary, right? If this goes to plan and we are raising millions and millions of pounds in charitable donations, I don't think anybody's going to care if I take 100,000 pounds in a salary, right? So as long as it's all kept reasonable and fair, I don't need to be rich, which is the antithesis of a normal salesperson. But if nothing else, not drawing a paycheck since August of 2022 makes it a lot easier for me to have a lean running lifestyle. So I've been able to pull this thing together with my team, and everybody's doing it on a volunteer basis until we can get this thing up and running and live. But
talk to me about that team, because that's a really important part of it, right? So
it is.
This is not a one-man show.
No.
You're there and you've poured time, effort, money into making this right.
Yes.
And you've been supported and helped by a lot of people on that journey at the same time as well, right?
Indeed. I think this is where being a salesperson and being willing to kiss a lot of frogs, and being willing to be tenacious and having thick skin and just really going towards that goal, because I needed to find people who were willing to volunteer their time to help build this thing, right? So I now have a fantastic fractional chief product officer in Steve Engdahl, who is ex-product manager at Charles River Development, at Golden Source, at CheckFree, so he has a proper pedigree. Lucky to have him, and he's been helping out a lot. Then there's Laura Adams as well, who's our fractional chief marketing officer, who's ex-Clearwater Analytics and Temenos Multifunds as a chief marketing officer. So some good pedigree behind me.
Behind you there.
Right. Yeah. Better at those jobs than I am. Right? I'm just tenacious with a good idea. These people know how to create marketing strategies, right? Create a platform. And now we have a new chief administration officer as well, who goes by the name T, and she is fantastic. And again, just these people, because they get sucked into the idea of making a difference, of getting involved in something different, not just another
making
FinTech.
something work as well, isn't it? And making something which is, I think that sort of whole creation piece is such an exciting buzz, isn't it, when you go out there and build that side.
When it's different too. It's not just a different iteration of an order management system. Right? It's completely new, completely disruptive, and it's for good.
So let's come back to the salesman in you, who's going out there, and the job to get this up to speed isn't straightforward. It's not straightforward because any charity needs to get the sort of, everyone always likes it, but they want to know the story behind it, etc. They want to make sure it's something there which has got trust and viability to it and all that sort of thing. But not only are you doing that, you're also looking at two different sides of the sale. Same as recruitment to an extent, I guess, isn't it, where you've got candidate and client. In this case, you've got time givers and time bidders.
Correct.
And your job is to get both of them engaged in your mission.
Correct.
So tell me a little bit about how that works and what you expect from the time givers and who you expect them to be and who you expect the time bidders to be and what's in it for them.
Perfect. So the time giver model is loosely based on the Warren Buffett lunch model. And I've always been a big eBay guy. I've always loved eBay. I love how eBay allows things to realize their intrinsic value. So why not use it to realize the intrinsic value of someone's time, their most precious commodity? There were flaws in the Warren Buffett lunch model, not the least of which was that there was just no controls around it, right? He would have to meet with whoever the high bidder was. And I always was surprised that Berkshire Hathaway was fine with him just going out and meeting anybody. So I wanted to take that model and productize it and put rails around it and controls around it so that it satisfies compliance concerns, so that it satisfies corporate social responsibility aspirations and the like. So I've taken this model of Warren Buffett and said, well, everybody's time has value. It doesn't just have to be masters of the universe. It could be the head of client reporting at a mid-sized asset management firm who has his or her own ecosystem of individuals that would love to spend an hour in front of them, right? So for those people who can still raise money for charity, because we allow anybody to come on the platform as a time giver in order to raise money for their charity. If there is a market for them, happy days. If there's not, then they put themselves up there for free, and at some point maybe the market will come to them, and there will be time bidders that join and are interested in their time. So from a time giver perspective, there's 4 reasons we found why someone will want to participate. The first is that we make it easy and we've removed as many barriers to entry as possible, right? There is no cost, there is no minimum time commitment. You pick the day of the meeting, the time of the meeting, the location of the meeting, the duration of the meeting. You pick the charitable donation that is necessary for you to meet with this person. You pick the charity that benefits, and again, as opposed to the Warren Buffett model, you pick who you're willing to meet with.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to you and says, I'd love to have a meeting with you, and you don't want to waste their time, or you have a compliance issue, whatever the case may be, you can say thanks but no thanks.
Yeah.
But if those who you're willing to meet, that's who
fully
you
in
meet.
control.
Fully in control.
Yeah.
So that's the first reason. And most people have a charity that's near and dear to their heart, and that they're willing to do the minimum for by putting themselves up on this platform to at least try to raise money for that charity or those charities. The second reason is the charities. Now that I've had a number of conversations with charities, they're quite excited, as you would imagine, right? This is a completely free solution. It's a completely new revenue stream that doesn't cannibalize any other revenue streams. It allows them to maximize the relationships that they have with their volunteers, with their trustees, with their historical donors, and use them to raise additional funds via this channel if they're willing to offer an hour of their time. So that might put additional pressure on the potential time giver community to participate. The third is the corporate social responsibility story, right? Because that was another, again, going back to my history, I didn't take part in a lot of organized volunteering events, and to be honest, most of the firms I worked with didn't get involved in that. This offers an easy way for the firm to make their employees available and also do some good, whether it's for their charity partners or just in general to allow their employees.
Do you see that firms sort of backing their teams to be able to do that sort of thing? Or?
We're seeing the beginnings of it. It's still early days, but thus far
that makes a lot of sense to me, right?
Yeah.
It's sometimes when it's the individual, that's one part of it, but when you can actually have a team there who are looking to go out there or a business who is saying, right, this is something which we want to give to you, and you think about how much volunteering there is at the moment, from, particularly in big companies who are looking to send their people out to do the various things which they do, to have that ability there to say, right, spend your time and help it and give do a friction-free process of doing that. I think there's a massive
for free. For free. Just give them either whether it's tacit approval or encouragement. This allows their employees will learn, because again, if this is a qualified meeting that they've agreed to take, they'll probably learn something from that meeting as well. And again, it'll just be a nice uptake. So if the company is behind this, and in a perfect world, the company would do matching gifts, where the employee would be able to raise money for a charity that they care about, while also knowing that they're helping the corporate partner. The fourth reason that I found why time givers might want to participate is because of, I'm sure as someone who runs a firm, and I'm sure all of those people that your recruiters are trying to reach out to, people get no shortage of unsolicited interest in their time, whether it's email or in-mail or voicemail or whatever the case may be. They like the ability to use this tool to go back to those individuals that are contacting them and say, hey, if I don't know you or your company and it's not something I'm looking for, I still set aside an hour a month for the Time to Give Network to raise money for charity. So if you want to meet with me, go over there. And this allows them to clean out their inbox and give the marching orders, if you will, to those salespeople or whoever it is trying to reach them. But it also offers them the opportunity to separate the wheat from the chaff. Right? And those who are serious about wanting to meet with them but have no way in, they can't network their way in, they can't call their way in, but they have a good story to tell, if that firm feels like, well, a £500 donation to that person's charity of choice is a good spend for me because it's that important, and they determine that the ROI is compelling, then this offers that channel to them. And they like to be able to take meetings that make sense. So that's the time giver side.
Which is compelling.
I thank you. There is no downside that I've found. Obviously, people are time constrained, right? Some people can't find
but
an
you still
hour,
get to choose that time, right? And everyone can find an hour.
Everyone can find
no matter what.
Right. Instead of one pub night, take those 2 hours and take 2 after-work meetings or whatever the case may be.
No one's that important.
From a time bidder perspective, and again, most of what we envision is going to be a buy it now option, to put it in eBay parlance, where people just put a price and a duration of a meeting, and they can either name a day and a time and a location, or they can just leave it to be worked out between the two. We also have the auction model, a la Warren Buffett. So for certain masters of the universe, that will still be a very good option for them to maximize that hour and drive up the donation. So those are the 2 options that we have as far as how the mechanism works. From a time bidder perspective, again, it goes back to access, right? And whether, again, the time bidder is seeking expertise, guidance, to pitch.
And this can be any person across any sort of space. There's no barriers to entry on who comes in. There's no sign up. They just say, they go into it and say, this is something I want to do.
Well, time bidders, we're now working through that model. Right now, the model is it's £150 for an annual seat license, because again, the Time to Give network can only fund ourselves through this mechanism, right? Because again, we can't take dividends, can't pay dividends. So it's £150 for a seat license in order to be able to access the platform. And then you have unlimited access of the platform. And that's all well and good.
And the platform, sorry, just to be black and white about this, the platform is then populated with everyone who's already signed up to be a time giver.
Correct. Anybody who is a time giver who has a live offer is somebody that the time bidder can then pursue and request a meeting with.
So they go through and scroll through the network and say, right, who can I find? They type in to say, right, I'd like to see someone from, Bank A as for example, and see who's in there on that.
That's a great question. Because there are going to be a wide variety of time givers, just like eBay. If I wanted to buy a car, I don't need to look at candlesticks. So the search criteria is huge, right? So we've taken a lot of the tags that exist in LinkedIn and LinkedIn Sales Navigator, so that when people set up their profile, it'll have their start date. Because I want to know who started that job within the last year, because they may be an agent of change, right? Or by asset class, or any number of other tags, and it'll also do a full text search of their profile. So people will have saved searches. So the way we envision most people accessing the platform is they'll set up their saved searches, which they'll refine over time. And every day, if a new time giver comes on the platform and makes an offer, and that time giver's profile is consistent with that saved search, that time bidder will get an email saying, oh, there's someone new, that you should take a look at this profile, click on the link, and they will then be brought into the platform to then see that person. And then they can search around, again, using very granular search criteria. But the challenge for time bidders and luring time bidders, because again, to your point, the time giver story is quite straightforward, and everybody can be a time giver. Anybody who has unsolicited interest in their time is technically a time giver. But from a time bidder perspective, they care about who's on the platform. They want to know that it's relevant. And that is a completely logical question. I would be asking the same question myself. In order to solve that problem, and again, one of the benefits of doing this as a not-for-profit, doing it altruistically, if you will, is that we ask our time bidders when they sign up, we say, well, who do you want to talk to? Right? If I have a client reporting software firm, the odds of me having a bunch of client reporting people are not very high, to be perfectly honest. But if they give me a list of all of those individuals that they've had challenges getting in front of, the Time to Give network then goes out under this altruistic banner and says to those individuals, not only do you pick the day and the time and the location of the meeting, not only do you pick the charity and the donation amount and who you're meeting with, but Mr. Potential Time Giver or Ms. Potential Time Giver, the market's already preloaded for your services because I'm acting on behalf of our time bidder community who've already indicated that they'd be happy to make a donation and pull them in and make it target rich. And then the only question is whether or not the donation amount that the time giver is asking for offers a compelling ROI to the time bidder. And if it does, then...
And those bids can be anything, there's no limit to them. They set them, the givers set them?
The givers set in the buy it now model.
Yeah.
In the auction model, they'll set a minimum and a reserve, same as eBay. But again, until people get a confidence that there is enough of a market for them to do it, again, as an American, I think in the US, the auction model might play a little bit more than it may play here. But we started here because number one, I'm here. Number two, my network is here, like you. And also because this community interest model structure is specific to the UK, so that's why it just all makes sense. So we'll just run the entire organization through this kick globally.
Yeah, amazing. And talk to me a little bit about what it looks like. What's the journey look like for you, the business, the charity?
Right. So we are right now. We have a great third-party vendor who sells software into the auction house space. So it already had the buy it now and the auction and the payment rails. So the team and I worked with their customization team to make it sing and dance the way the Time to Give network needs to run. And we literally just took delivery last week. So we're super excited.
I bet.
We have spent...
There must be so many of those little benchmarks on the journey.
Oh my goodness, to have an actual product where I can actually pull my phone out and show people like a real product versus being a guy waving a PowerPoint deck around for the past year plus. That has been super helpful, or will be helpful as I start to, now really, we kick it up a notch from our marketing, from our social media perspective and the like. So now that the product exists, we've been working with our early adopter time givers. We have a dozen over the course of the next 8 days that we're sitting down, help working with them to set up their profile, to set up offers, get their feedback on the user experience, go back to the vendor, make some tweaks, and then release this to the market. Again, we're focused predominantly on the UK financial services industry and its ecosystem, which is basically everybody.
Scalability-wise, I mean,
right.
One step at a time.
Just keep it a bit focused, but it's already slipping because we had a meeting that took place last week, which was between two ecosystem firms, right? The chief information officer of a fund administrator and the head of sales at a fintech. Yeah. So it never even touched the asset management world, but there is a natural market here. So, which is why it's great for time bidders, because time bidders not only get access, but those firms are also full of time givers. They can also improve their CSR profile and raise money for charity because those heads of marketing at a fintech or the CEO or SMEs at a fintech or a service provider, there's a market for them as well. So they can participate in multiple ways.
Question for you. So let's say I'm a time bidder. And I bid for something with the CEO of a asset manager, as for example, and I get that particular piece, and I've paid my few £100 across to it. Is that a business donation? Is that an individual donation? Where does that generally tend to come from? Where's your vision speak about that?
I think it'll be predominantly corporate credit cards being used. So we have an API connection to Just Giving, which have been fantastic. And they have a very robust API and it works really well. So we have a connection there. So if you were to, if that CEO was agreed to meet with you for that amount, in the model, you would make that donation via the Just Giving pipes. We would auto-populate Just Giving on your behalf. And then there's also a 10% service charge to the Time to Give network. So if that COO went for £400, you would make a £400 donation. The charity gets 100%. Time to Give network gets £40 on top. So there would be 2 payments for you, and then you get that meeting. You now have a face-to-face meeting with that COO. When you win, or when that COO agrees to meet with you, then you get that COO's or CEO's email address, so you can set an agenda. So you can have the most impactful meeting possible. You can ask questions in advance, right? Or maybe the CEO looks at what you've sent and says, that's Susie down the hall. I should probably bring her into that meeting. And then now you're already in front of that person, and the CEO can remove himself, and it's super impactful for all the way around. Because we've tried to make that meeting as meaningful as possible. And if you've made a donation to that CEO's charity of choice, he's going to remember you.
I love the fact that it's not just commercial as well. So it's not just a sales thing to get that access. It's about mentorship. It's about learning, or it's about networking, as you said. There's so many different reasons to do it. Going back to your journey and where you're at at the moment, you mentioned as well that there's sort of, in any sort of startup journey, there's fundraising and trying to get this right. I know you're doing the sort of founding 40 concepts and everything like that. So tell me, or tell the people watching, what the best way of them helping. I mean, look, it feels like it's a no-brainer. There's some really exciting stuff that you're doing with it. I know, as I said, how passionate you are about making this work, and I know that you can see it and envision it as solving the issue you had throughout your whole career, which makes it even more exciting as to where you go with it. But with a vision, there's also the practicality of making that vision work and getting everything in line. And you've made, as you alluded to earlier on, sacrifices to make this work. And you want people to be on the boat with you, right? And you've had this army of volunteers that have worked so far, but to scale it now and get it moving further forward, I know you need to get the sort of right costings in place to take up the next thing and make it the reality and the thriving reality which we know it will be.
Yes.
Tell me what you're looking for.
So, thanks to some early sponsors, and I can give a shout out to Buzzicots and 110 Associates and Price Forbes and Mesmerize and Prescient Fund Services and others who have been part of the Founding 40. And that comprises institutions or individuals as well who have been willing to contribute £5,000 to this not-for-profit entity in order to help us with our journey. All of the money that we've been able to raise thus far has been put towards building the platform, building a nice website with an explainer animation, and so build the foundation. Not enough for salaries yet, much to our chagrin, but we will get there in the end. I know as well as anybody, selling vaporware is no small task, but now that we actually have a product and people can see it and believe it exists, I think it's going to be that tipping point. So we are into, and we do have quite a few of the Founding 40, but we are looking to raise £5,000 from a total of 40 firms in order to help with us to scale this operation. The second revenue stream is going to be from the time bidders. As people sign up, it's £150 for an annual seat license, and again, that gives you not only access to the platform, but it also gives you the service component of the Time to Give network going out and hunting on your behalf. The third revenue stream is from the 10%, and then there's also going to be an events component, just because it lends itself to it. It's about networking and making connections, and that's where the Founding 40 can also get some good branding opportunities as well. And then the last potential funding that we've identified is, while we can't pay dividends, we can take a loan. So if we can find a patient capital loan, or love money as it's also known, that would really be quite helpful as well. And the message there is all about philanthropic gearing, where basically if we are able to take a £50,000 loan, our ability to scale this will be huge. And the outgrowth of our scaling is charitable donations. So that £50,000, you not only get your £50,000 back if you believe that this is going to work, but you're also responsible for generating £500,000 in charitable donations. So it's the gift that keeps giving. There's no losers in this model, which is what I love. Nobody's getting hard done by in this model. And again, with the support of the FinTech community, with the support of the asset management community, with the support of all the service providers and software suppliers that feed into the asset management world, we don't need everybody. We just need enough to get enough activity going, and we're hoping that the community...
There's a lot of winners in that community.
There's a lot of winners. And if the asset management community or the FinTech community can come together in the UK and create that critical mass, and then release this universal model to the world, because it works just as well in pharmaceuticals as it does in Singapore, right? And then this community can take ownership of delivering this free solution to the world. And that's, I think, where I'm hoping people get that mindset when they think about, do I participate or don't?
And the whole uptake of it so far, I imagine, has been overwhelmingly positive.
Yes, I mean, it's a low bar on the time giver side, right? As long as people believe it's real, because it's a riskless trade, right? There's no downside to this model. And then the time bidders, now we're really starting an aggressive campaign, which is why this timing is so important to us, because we know that, you know, your viewership is squarely in our target market there. Again, both for time bidders and time givers and sponsors.
Absolutely.
That we're hoping that we're going to get some nice uptake as a result of this and my ongoing tireless efforts.
Well, it feels like there's no loss of enthusiasm in those tireless efforts at the same sort of stage. And yeah, I wish you massive luck with it all. So if people are looking at it and it's resonated, either time givers or time bidders or even the people who want to sponsor and get involved in this and are excited, as I think we all are about around this whole piece, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I would say go through the website or follow us on LinkedIn. We certainly are trying to kick up our social media a notch. I've learned a lot from you, actually, in our pre-conversation, which is always helpful, because LinkedIn is a funny thing, and making sure that it
moves
also
all the time.
Yeah, and that's going to be our main medium of communication. Maybe we'll use X at some point, or Facebook, but really it is about LinkedIn and direct outreach. So, but yeah, we have a website that has all the information and a great explainer animation. The LinkedIn page to follow us, contact me directly, link with me directly, and we'll be happy to have you on board. And I'll be happy personally to share the story.
Fantastic.
All right.
Well, it was a great story to share.
Thank you.
Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Appreciate that.
And thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on the next episode of FinTech Focus TV. And do get in touch with Andrew. Catch up soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.